Once I have finished the clip of my animation, I need to follow this process of exporting an image sequence one more time because I need to get this animation into a video editing program like Premiere. That's where I'll do all my cuts and my transitions. That's where I'll add the sound back in a final time, add music and other sound effects, special effects, titles. All those things happen in a video editor. So we have to do this process of creating a bunch of JPEGs one last time. The first thing to know is that if you don't have a camera set up, your renders, what your final images will be as you create a long string of images of your animation, will be based off of this, whatever you're currently looking at, your perspective screen. And if you click on this button here, this is called the resolution gate, this will show you a more accurate description of what you're actually going to render. So only the stuff inside of this box will be rendered. And if
All I want is to earn your respect, Frank. How can I do that if you won't fight me? All I want is to earn your respect, Frank.
I can set a camera up and animate the camera as well, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. The next thing I need to do is make sure that my project is set up correctly, because when it makes all of those images, it's going to save that to a project folder that I've created previously. If I haven't created that, then it could save it anywhere. It's saving it at some default location on the C drive in users. So if I come here to File, Project Window, I can make sure that my current project is in the correct place, and I probably want to name it. If it's not, I can click New and then click on this folder and navigate to a new folder in the location that I want it to be in. And so once I've done that, then it'll create a project folder at that spot that has a folder for scenes. That's where you can save all your MB files. It's got assets. Images is going to be where our renders are going to go. There's all sorts of different folders that can be very useful in your project. So once you've got that set up, you're ready for the next part. Now let's go to our render settings, which is this clapper board here with the gear next to it. When I click on that, it'll open up the render settings. And there's some things that I need to change here. First off, I want to make sure that my path is correct. This is where it will be saving my images. So in my case, on my H drive, CubeMouth, new project, because I forgot to rename it, and the images folder. If that is a place you don't recognize, you'll need to go and reset the project. The next thing that I need to look at is file output. This is the image format and how many of something I'm going to be making. The default format is IFF. I want to create JPEGs instead. If I was going for a higher quality, probably a TIFF or something would be great, but for now, JPEGs are awesome. Under the animation extension, right now, it's only a single frame animation, so I'd only get a single frame out of it. I want a batch of frames, a sequence of frames, and so I need to choose one of these that doesn't say single frame. And the best of the bunch, I think, is this name.number. The number represents which frame it is. And then extension is it a JPEG or whatever. If you choose one of these formats that has the number at the end, that can be confusing for Premiere, who looks at this file called lipsync.0001 and asks what is a 0001 file. And so I want to choose one of these with the extension at the end. I prefer this one. Frame padding is how many zeros there are before the frame number. So in this case, it'll be 4 is the padding, so it'll be 0001, 0002. That's really only important when you start getting to hundreds and thousands of frames being rendered, and that makes sure everything is sequential. That should be it for the file output. Now let's do the frame range. This is how many frames I want it to render. My animation ends at frame 88, so I set my start frame at 1 and my end frame at 88. If I wanted to do a quick test render, I could animate every other frame or every third frame just to see how it looks. For now, I'm just going to animate every single frame. And then I also have at the bottom image size. This is the resolution of the image that's going to be created. For now, I'll keep it as the default of the HD 540, which is 960 width, 540 height in pixels. If I wanted to change that, we've got 4K resolutions, we've got HD resolutions. Just know that the larger the render you're creating, the more time it's going to take to render it. And once I have all those things, I can click Close. Now I'm ready. I have to find the render menu. If you don't see it up here at the top, you'll need to make sure that your drop-down is on rendering and not any of the other ones. So if I click on rendering, now I can go to render and click on batch render. And at the bottom it'll tell you that it's rendering with Maya software. Because I'm doing it in software render, it should happen very quickly. If I changed it to mental ray and did lighting, having the mental ray lighting, it would probably take quite a bit longer to render every single frame. And you can see that right now I'm getting results. It's rendering a bunch of images very quickly into that folder. And I can even go to that folder and I can see those happening. So once those are all done, I will have every single frame of my, if I double click on this first one, you can see here that there's my frame 1. I really do need some lighting in this. Frame 2, frame 3, and so on. And then I'm ready to bring that into Premiere. Now I'm going to let this pause, and when it's done, I'll show you how to do a mental ray render if you want it to have a higher quality with the nice lighting and everything. If I were to render this with mental ray, which is where it does a lot more math based off the lighting, it bounces the rays of light from the light source and calculates where that light's going to go. It'll take a lot longer to render every single frame. That was happening about a frame a second with the software render, so keep that in mind. It could take a very long time to render if we do it this way. If I click on my render settings, I will change this to render using, and I don't have it right now, so I may have to go to my Windows, Settings and Preferences plugin manager and turn on mental ray. So if you don't see that mental ray option, you'll have to come to the plugin manager, find your Maya 2 MR and load it. If it didn't auto load, sometimes it doesn't. And now when I render, I should have mental ray as one of my options. I'm going to go to Scene and create a physical sun and sky just by clicking Create. That creates this sun here. And when I close that out, this sun, depending on which way it's rotated, if it's straight up and down, it's noon. If it's tilted on its side, it's dusk all the way into evening. So, and the direction of the light is based off of the angle as well. So I can just put this, it doesn't really matter where it is. You'll probably want to just put it out of the way. And I can do a test render here. I click on this one, render the current frame, and I can see, and it's taking forever because it takes a long time to render mental ray, but it gives you a much cleaner render. Can you see that there? And it's much brighter. I'm going to get it'll look a lot nicer, but it's going to take much longer to render every single frame at this point. So let me make sure my camera's in a good place. Probably want to. And maybe I'll make it a little bit more in the evening. And I could probably put in a ground or whatever else you want to add to this. As this first go around, it's not strictly necessary, a lot of this stuff. You don't have to do the mental ray if you don't want to. And now I'm ready to render it again. So everything else should be the same. It's just going to be rendering with mental ray instead. I may have to come back here and reset JPEG. I want it to be named out extension. Everything else should be good. So now when I go to render and batch render, it's going to take much longer to render with mental ray. So if you're doing tests and you just want to see how it looks, it's good to do it in software. And save the mental ray until you're ready to be focusing on that a lot more. So now, that's how long it took to do a single frame, which still isn't that long. I don't have a lot of complex geometry or materials on there, but it will take quite a bit longer. And then when you're done, the next tutorial will tell you how to edit all of this together in Premiere.